Welcome to Real Estate in Real Time. I'm Woody Zimmerman here with Mark Skabowski of Remax Lakes, and Happy New Year!
Happy New Year!
2024. I don't know.
It's a big year for me, mister.
Oh, is it?
The big 6-0.
Oh,
the
okay.
big 6-0. Married
Wow.
the big 4-0.
Yeah. Man.
It's a big year.
That is a big year,
That
yes.
is a big year in the Skabowski house.
All right, so what are you planning for the anniversary? I assume
Well-
that for your 40th, you got to do something
Well,
big.
we are in the process of planning. You know,
Okay.
we do our Christmas thing, we do our drawing instead of presents stuff. We do a family trip.
Okay, yeah.
So we had our drawing at Christmas time, and
Yeah.
now my wife is planning it. Of course, I'm not in the planning.
Oh, you're
phase.
not. Oh, you don't plan
I'm
it.
not in the planning phase. In fact,
Okay.
I take my name out of the.
Well, then,
planning
hey,
phase.
there's nothing wrong with that.
I'm in the paying phase. That's
yeah,
my
right, yes.
responsibility is
Well,
my church paid for.
Okay, well,
So we're
again,
doing the Smoky Mountains at some point.
Okay, all
right. But for our anniversary, I don't know what in the world we're going to do. We've talked about it. I mean, we do a lot of vacations anyway.
Yeah.
Terrible to say, but we do.
Well, hey, but that's a good thing.
We're going
That's
to do
not
something
bad.
special. I don't know exactly what that is yet, but I would like to go on a dive trip, and I'm glad my wife dives now. So I would like to go somewhere and spend a week diving.
Yeah.
April, May-ish, but we'll see if that happens or not. Maybe we'll do it earlier. Maybe we'll do it later. Who knows
Hey,
what the year will bring?
At least you know it's in the plans.
It's in the plans. It is in process. And my birthday, hey, the big 6-0. What a deal.
Mm-hmm.
What a deal. I'll say that all this year, right? And
Yeah.
so my wife and I are exactly 6 months apart.
Okay.
So she's always, you're older than me. But I say, you know what? But there's 6 months of the year we're the same age.
Right,
So you can call me old, but guess
Yeah.
what? We're
Yeah.
the same age during 6 months of the year.
All right, so are you gonna have an issue turning 60?
Not at all.
Okay, no.
Not
So
at all.
the only time I had an issue is when I turned 30. I did not want to leave my 20s because I felt like when you turn 30, you officially have to grow up. You can't be a kid anymore. Okay, so that was the only one I had an issue with. When I hit 40, it's like bring it on.
Bring it
50,
on.
bring it on.
Bring in the noise.
I don't care. So
No, it's all good. It's
Yeah.
all it's part of the process.
Yeah.
So can't complain. So, but people aren't checking in to listen to us talk about age getting old, right? But I thought we would talk a little bit about last week we talked is now the right time to buy a home? Is it a good time?
Yeah.
Ultimately, being ready to buy a home when the time is right for you.
Mm-hmm.
What's your why is very important. But it isn't just like you wake up and go, hey, I'm going to buy a house today.
Right.
I guess some people do.
Well, sure.
Some people do.
Hey, there's a house on the street for sale.
Yeah.
Let's go take a look
at it.
Yeah, let's go look.
Let's go look at it. Well, are you pre-approved? Are you ready to buy? Blah, blah, blah. All of
Yeah.
those things
Yeah.
when you talk to an agent. Because why go looking at a house if you're not ready to buy or if you're going to buy in 10 months?
Right.
Because the time frame from start to finish, once you get accepted offers, 30 to 45 days. So if
Mhm.
you're looking at homes today and you're not thinking of buying until September,
Yeah.
those homes aren't going to be available.
Right.
There is nothing wrong with searching online so you get a feel for what pricing is doing. Nothing wrong with that at all.
Mm-hmm.
But just don't go because when a seller opens their house up to you, they're excited. They think you're looking there to buy. If
Yeah.
you're just looking to be looking or to get design ideas, it's really not fair to the seller to kick them out of their house,
Mhm.
for an hour while you're there just getting design ideas
Yeah.
out of their house. So how do we get ready to buy? Well, credit score. Sounds like financial planning show, but credit score is critical.
Mm-hmm.
Your credit history is extremely important in your ability to not only get a mortgage,
Mm-hmm.
the type of mortgage,
Yeah.
but what your interest rate is going to
Oh
look
yeah,
like.
what your
if
rate's
you
going?
get
Yeah,
that.
that's a big deal.
So, a lot of times we get people, well, interest rates have dropped. Yeah, they have. And, they might be advertising 6.5, but that's for somebody with really good credit
Yeah.
and 20% down.
Yeah.
If you're doing any of the other types of programs, your rate may not be as well. Now, occasionally VA, I don't pretend to be an expert on interest rates when it comes to the types and how they apply, but like VA has got a different loan interest rate than what an FHA, than a USDA. That's why talk to a local lender. They'll advise you on the best program for you. But the stuff I can talk about are if your credit is shot, highly unlikely you're going to get a be pre-approved for a mortgage. If you got a lot of late pays, which obviously drives your credit rate down or your credit score down, it's going to be tougher for you to get a mortgage. Now, can it be done? Absolutely. You can. I've seen people buy property, and you're like, wow, I can't believe they got approved. But hallelujah, they did. The mortgage went through. They got it. I don't want to see somebody buy and then ultimately be upside down and not be able to pay their payment.
No,
that's
not
the
good.
worst thing that could
Right.
ever happen. Because when you go through a bankruptcy and all of that stuff, you talk about a credit hit.
Yeah.
Now you have really harmed your credit if you have to go to a bankruptcy and your property is foreclosed upon and all that stuff. Don't want to see anybody in that position. So when we're probing with a buyer, when they're talking to us, what we're trying to do is, are you really ready to buy? Have you taken the steps to do that? So maintaining your credit history is probably the most important piece that you can do in getting ready to buy a home. So make sure that you pay your payments on time, that you get credit for what you're paying. A lot of people have bought on land contract. They may not be reporting that. You may not have a credit score at all.
No.
So it's important that you maintain and you monitor that credit.
Right.
It truly is. And, again, I don't pretend to be an expert on that. There are plenty of them out there, people that can advise you on those things. But I do know that the negative ramification of having a poor credit score or no credit score is going to impact your ability to buy a home.
Yeah. All right. More on this topic coming up next. You're listening to Real Estate in Real Time. Welcome back. You're listening to Real Estate in Real Time, and we're talking about if you're ready to buy a home, and we spent a good part of the show talking about that credit score, because that is very, very important. Now, I know I went to get a mortgage, and I had no car loans. I had my credit card was paid off. It was at zero, and I was told by a mortgage originator, like, your credit score is this, but it could be higher if you. And I'm like, it's like I started getting defensive. Don't tell me to get, But that is true. You have to establish credit, and so I mean, a car loan, and I'm not saying run out and spend a bunch of money, but you do have to establish credit before a bank or a credit union or whatever will give you a mortgage. You have to prove it.
Absolutely. And, we go through the cycles, and, Dave Ramsey, he's been out there. He's really promoted, get debt free, financial peace. They have programs about that, and it's all about never sat through them myself, but I understand the concepts, and it makes sense.
Yeah.
But unfortunately, you have to have some credit if you can't afford to pay cash. As we talked about over the course of the last year, affordability. Who's got $400,000 cash to pay for a house?
Yeah.
While you're renting at rates that are higher than anything, that we've ever seen.
Yeah.
So having some credit is an important piece. Establishing credit, I think, is an important piece. And it's not just about buying a house. It's about, and your interest rate, it's about your insurance rates. If you don't have a good credit score, your insurance rates are higher. Well, how does that fare, Mark? Well, if you're a poor credit risk, the insurance companies think you're more likely to be a poor driver. You're going to be a riskier driver, I guess, to them. So, credit score matters. It just does. And there are things, hey, I paid a credit card off and my credit score went down. I hear people say that. It makes no sense to me.
Yeah, that's me.
It makes zero sense to me. But
seems like that would be good credit. But
you would think you're improving your position, not negatively impacting your position.
Right.
So that's where it's important that you talk to a lender, somebody to advise you on, because I'm really ready to buy a house now. I've had that discussion, amongst ourselves. We're ready to go. That's the step. But I can tell you right now, you don't have to talk to an expert. Pay your payments on time.
Yeah.
Pay more than the minimum on your credit card payments.
Yep.
And then I guess the next thing is save money. Put as much aside as you possibly can. My stepfather, he was an engineer. I mean, he'd always done investing in and on his own. Never had, any courses, this, that, or the other. Just a smart guy. He gave me some advice when I was 20 years old that was, Mark, always pay yourself first. Always pay yourself first. And what is he saying there? Put money in the bank before you pay the other stuff. Now, that doesn't mean let it go, be 3 months behind on paying the other things. But when you establish a budget, and yes, you should have some kind of a budget, putting money in savings, whether that's in a 401k, if you listen to Ellen, in Smart Money Management, they're talking about having an emergency fund
Yep.
set aside to take care of some things. When you own a house, you're going to need that emergency fund.
Yeah, you will.
Says the guy who bought 2 furnaces in 2023.
Right. Yeah. You know what happens less when you have an emergency fund? Emergencies.
Emergency.
Yeah, it's great. I mean,
It's not
as
a
soon as I
crisis.
establish an emergency fund, it's like, okay, all right, less emergency.
It's not as much of a crisis.
Yeah.
It's not as stressful if you
Right.
have that set aside. And it many times it doesn't have to be a large amount. It's not like I'm saying you have to take half of your paycheck and put it in the bank. Make it $10 a week. Make it $20 a week. Make it $5 a week. If it's $10 a week, it's $520, 52 weeks
Mm-hmm.
in a year that you put into a savings account.
Right.
Now, it doesn't sound like a lot of money, but go 2 years. Now it's $1,000.
Right.
Right? I went to a Zig Ziglar seminar ages ago,
Mhm.
and it was a sales seminar, but this stuck with me. He stood on one side of the stage, and he said, okay, I'm going to double. I'm going to take 1 step, now I'm going to take 2 steps, now I'm going to take 4 steps, now I'm going to take 8 steps, now I'm going to take 16. I can't do any more math than that. But basically, if I'm doubling that, right,
Mhm.
over time,
Yeah.
what most people do in savings, they get up to a specific point, then they spend it all. And then he'd walk back to the other side of the stage. And he says, now we're back at 0 again. So
Right.
the whole point is, I'm not saying don't buy, don't spend, don't this, don't that, but you need to keep something set aside long term.
Mm-hmm.
And if you're going to buy a house, it's more important than ever because things are going to break. You own a home, things are going to break.
Right.
And as you mentioned, it's not an emergency if you have the funds available, but it's an emergency if you don't.
Right.
And
Right.
now all of a sudden, you don't have heat, you don't have lights, the furnace went out, whatever those are, it's much more stressful to take care of that.
Mhm.
So this planning, the financial planning part of owning a home is critical. Your credit score is important, yes. Saving some money so that you're putting money aside, absolutely. So that hopefully you've got enough money saved for a down payment so you don't have to use a 100% financing program, although those are out there and available.
Yeah.
And if it's there, again, it's a decision you have to make. Grandma and grandpa are going to say, oh, you got to put 20% down. That is not the case. There are numerous ways that you can finance homes today,
Mm-hmm.
and only you can decide what the best one is for you. But if you've got a good credit score and you've got some money in the bank, you've positioned yourself for success once you do purchase that home. And
Mhm.
that's what I'm about. I don't want somebody buying it and all of a sudden they're getting foreclosed upon because they can't afford to pay
Right.
their
And the
payments.
banks are really, really good at being able to say, hey, you can afford
Yes.
this much.
Yes.
Because this you should have this much extra money that you can
Right.
save that and so forth. So and you always say work with a local lender, and this is really where it really comes down
Yeah.
to because they care, like you said.
You
And-
got
and
an
they're
office you
concerned
can
about
walk into and talk to somebody.
Yeah, exactly. All right, Mark, your contact information.
So the website, skabowskiteam.com. Phone numbers 574-527-0660. Can email me, mark@skabowskiteam.com. Have a great 2024.
Yes, 2024. Can't believe it. All right, you've been listening to Real Estate in Real Time. Have yourself a wonderful weekend.